Welcome back to the Dungeon Master's Block, the place where we come to talk about the Dungeon Master, the most important person in the game. With every conversation, we hope to inspire as many as possible to keep on Dungeon Mastering.
And I'm one of your hosts, DM Neal, aka Joke Maniac.
And I am your other host, DM Derrick, aka How Not to DM.
And if you've read the description or the title or anything, or you listened to last week's episode, that's not true though. If you listened to the episode 2 weeks ago where we talked about our ideas, we are catching up to give you a grand total of 300 ideas throughout the span of the podcast. So that means we have 35 more this time around. And as you well know, we won't dive as deep into some of them because we're just playing a really interesting game of catch up.
It is a very interesting game. It's been fun to revisit all the ideas that are out there. So we've been teasing in the last couple episodes that we've got some exciting news coming out, and we are really excited to announce some of those officially today. So, Neal, what's the first thing that we have that we're really excited about?
First and foremost, we have been working behind the scenes to rebrand some of our logos and things like that. And to say that we are excited about presenting those is the most ridiculous understatement I could possibly make. And in that, though, there needs to be some time off that we take so that we can really do that correctly. So we're going to take a month-long hiatus, which is super typical for this time of year historically throughout the podcast. September, October is, for whatever reason, the time it always lines up that we're like, you know what? This would be a perfect time for a break. So if you keep an eye on our social medias, social platforms, who knows what those are called anymore. But basically, if you keep an eye there or the podcast feed itself, you will immediately see a change for a new logo. The website is in the works, everything. But that has also taken a bit of a backseat because there's been some really interesting discussions we've had. And what would those be about?
Yeah, so we're meeting with Jordan, who's helping us design the logo this week. The episode's coming out to finalize those, so we're excited about that. But yeah, the other thing we're super excited about is we are starting to onboard more shows onto the Block Party Podcast Network. We've had a bunch of really cool ones that have partnered with us in the past on the Block Party Podcast Network, and we have really enjoyed working with all of those folks. A lot of those shows aren't currently active anymore, and so that's why I approached Neal with the idea of bringing some more fresh blood on, some new ideas, some fun people to work with, and I feel like all of us combined could make some cool stuff together, but also that means we can recommend these shows highly to you all as well. So yeah, we looked for shows that aligned with kind of our values, you know, the family friendliness that we really enjoy, but also shows that are working hard and doing cool stuff and are just fun and good people in general also. It just so happens that both of these shows are local to me, but, we can look past that and ignore the nepotism for now.
No, and one of the other things that we've been looking for are really good actual plays that we can offer up as something that would be places that you can listen. And Dungeons and Dragons and Daughters is still going. And that is always something that we've said that is a fantastic place, especially to get your kids into D&D. It's what really got my kids to enjoy D&D. I've listened to the podcast all the way through a couple times because I had already done so, and then my kids wanted to listen. But these are the same kind of vibes because a lot of actual plays don't mind dipping into is it language, is it content, is it different aspects that make it difficult without pre-screening, which I don't have the time for that. And dear listener, I don't imagine you do either. But the idea that something that we can put forward as both part of the network and something that you could bring to your kids.
Yes. So without further ado, the two new shows that we're welcoming to the Block Party Podcast Network are Knocked Prone and The Bad Venture Club. So Knocked Prone has been running for a while now. They are currently in their third season, so they've had two awesome seasons that are in the middle of their third of really fun actual play content. Cade, their DM, is super creative in telling stories. He really finds very fun niche ideas and then drills into them to make the story that he wants to tell. And the world is also really flavorful and interesting as well. So check out Knocked Prone. It's spelled exactly as I'm saying it, so it should be easy to find. And give Knocked Prone some love, and welcome Knocked Prone to the Block Party Podcast Network.
Yep, and I particularly enjoy the combination of certain mechanics to make new mechanics. That's kind of what like my big thing of like always having an ear out for like the next way that Kate will mash two up.
Yes.
But that leads us, of course, to the Bad Venture Club, another amazing AP, and I genuinely love how much it is very clear that they are all friends, and they're just, it's like you're invited to their table, which is a key, like one of the biggest key aspects of any actual plays, feeling like you're just taking another seat at their table. And of course, that's where Jordan, who's helping us with all of our logo rebrand, is also a player there. So go to the show notes, or just type both of these into your podcatcher of choice. Show them some love. Leave a rating and review on there saying that the Block Party sent you, or whatever you want.
Yes, definitely go show those shows some love. Like Neal said, once the logo has been completed and is 100% signed off on by us two, we are super excited to launch some more merch, definitely. We're going to be revamping the site, and we'll include some information about these two awesome new shows. And as we are working on the site and the podcast network as well, we're really excited to see what other stuff we come up with to work with these two awesome new shows we're working with. Also, you know, maybe we're going to have more shows that we bring on in the future. So be on the lookout for all those changes, holiday shenanigans, all sorts of fun stuff in the future.
But because we got a lot of work ahead of us, let's head to the meat.
I'm starving. We ain't had nothing but maggoty bread for 3 stinking days.
Why can't we have some meat?
This is Sparta!
So today, Neal, you and I both have created another list of 17 campaign ideas that we are going to combine to a total of 34, and then we're going to mash up 2 at the end for 35. But you also told me that you wanted to throw a little wrinkle in for today.
Again, because we've had to do so many so quickly, the only way that I could motivate myself this time around was to create a fun little game that unfortunately Derrick has to play. And this fun little game is, what movie or TV property did I steal this idea from? So I will give my prompt, and I am sure that many of the listeners will be shouting at their car, their phone, whatever the sound of my voice is coming through, they will be shouting at them. I do love that the caveat that you presented was, I don't watch a lot of things, so fear not. I will, if there is any hesitation on your part, I will quickly give you the answer, because we don't have time for anything else.
Agreed. And listeners, if you think that Neal's prompts were super obvious and I missed them, tell me what was so obvious about them and why you love that thing that he is making me guess. All right.
Perfect. Well, let's kick it off. Do you want a movie or a TV?
Let's do movie first.
Okay. Are you ready?
I am ready.
It's so weird because I really want to say something, but I realize that's not the game that I have set up. So I have obviously made this more difficult for myself than I thought I would. But the prompt is, the party, armed with a collection of mysterious artifacts, embarks on a thrilling journey through time. They encounter legendary figures from history, witness pivotal moments firsthand, and inadvertently alter the course of events. As they navigate the complexities of temporal travel, they must grapple with the ethical implications of their actions and the far-reaching consequences of their choices.
Boy, there's so many time travel movies. My first instinct is just Bill and Ted, but I don't know.
Ooh.
It's not like a whole group, and they don't have a bunch of artifacts with them.
Yeah. So some of, I will admit, some of these I really did try and scrub a lot of the numbers off of them.
I understand.
Some of them I think are like pretty heavy-handed, and they won't be hard. I can also offer a clue.
Sure, a clue.
There are 3 movies.
There are 3 of them? I mean, is it Back to the Future, or is it...
Boom!
Classic. Love Back to the
Well
Future. Done. Back to the Future 2, also really good. My grandparents had all 3 on VHS, so whenever we would visit, I would watch all 3, usually, amongst other things. 3 was the weaker of the 3, obviously.
It's interesting that you say that, because it's not that I disagree. It is, but I will then in turn say 3 is probably the easiest to pull more from because of when they're going to.
That's true.
If you're going, so there's more, like if you think the train or, kind of the Wild West.
The gunfight is fun, the bait and switch, the fact that their families didn't stray far from where they settled. Anyway, and also it puts a bow on the series, right? Like, unless you have 3, you don't see him get in the truck with Jennifer, not race needles, this is a spoiler for a 40-year-old movie or whatever, but doesn't race needles, doesn't get hurt, right? So he ends up having a good career in music, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I get it.
Hey, that was easy enough. The rest might not be.
We will see. Okay, my first one is a classic treasure hunt. And I was kind of thinking like Indiana Jones-ish or whatever, but there's so many treasure hunt movies and shows out there. You can steal from just about anywhere. But I like the idea of it being either kind of piratey or otherwise. You give them a vague map, set sail in a certain direction, and then you get to kind of like fill in the blanks in between point A and point B, or, wherever they set sail to where X marks the spot, and think of all the cool shenanigans and stuff that happen between. Treasure Island is kind of a fun idea. Pirates of the Caribbean. There's just so many good piratey movies out there where there's treasure involved. The Goonies. There's just tons.
Yeah, and it's always interesting to think about like what tropes I have gone through more in like my my DMing or playing career through Dungeons and Dragons, because I feel like some people end up like you just like see some of the same things, whereas I can't think of the last time I've had like just dropping a coin and like letting a single coin be this. You think of your real world examples of like one person stumbles onto like a Spanish doubloon from the 1600s, and you think like, wait a minute. They were doing this where it was like in one of the more shallow seas. They're like, if you found this, that's the ship that's been missing for hundreds of years. That definitely has a bunch of this on it. We need to figure that out.
Yeah.
And I definitely don't do that. So I think it's a great idea.
All right, Neal, hit me with your next mystery.
We're going to do TV?
Yeah, sure, show. We'll alternate until you run out of one.
Yep. In the bustling city, a struggling alchemist stumbles upon a rare and potent magical substance. Driven by the desire to escape poverty and provide for their family, they begin to experiment with this substance, unaware of its devastating potential. Soon they find themselves entangled in a dangerous underworld of illicit magic, where greed and corruption lurk around every corner. As the experiments grow more reckless, the stakes rise higher and the consequences become increasingly dire.
I mean, my first thought is like the villain from Spider-Man who turns himself into a lizard. But is it Breaking Bad?
Well done. It is, in fact, Breaking Bad.
Nice. I was also thinking it could be Limitless from the first half, but
yes,
that's also, I guess it was a movie first and then it's a show. But anyway.
Yeah. One of the most... Because I was watching it as it released, which is certainly not how not everyone was doing that. It was AMC. It was difficult, very popular, but certainly not how everyone watched it. But I was watching it week by week. So the most like poignant thing that hit me and also makes me think most about D&D is the speed at which things escalate. Especially you think like I was level 1 2 weeks ago and now I'm level 20 because we just went through this giant dungeon and have slept like a handful of times. I think about that because there's a point where he's having the pancakes and then he's having them again. And it's at that point you realize only one year has passed and all of these things have happened.
Yeah.
So I think that's like a really good thing to say. Like, yeah, things really truly can escalate in such a short amount of time. And this is such a good illustration of those things just ramping up to the nth degree.
And Walter White's a great way to work in a morally gray character or a morally gray villain, that people may sympathize with depending on what they know about them and their motivations. And also he's got a bunch of really good one-liners, especially in that last season. Say my name.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I am the one who knocks.
Yes.
But you think of like, and that's what your wizard says every time they cast knock. But you think of like his traveling party. You think of like, Saul Goodman being the bard. You think of Jesse being
The
something.
rogue, probably?
Mike, rogue. Mike. It'd be Mike being my favorite character by far. But like you can literally like start to pick out the pieces that make up his party, basically. So yeah, there's a ton. I think there's a ton. This is not this. I will also preface a bunch of my options are certainly not family friendly.
True.
They can be like still you can take from those and make kind of whatever you want.
R.I.P. combo.
Yep. Badger.
Here we go. The next one I have is a race to explore. I do this with the caveat that it would be a lot of fun to do some kind of exploration similar to the race to explore the planet, the globe in the 14 and 1500s. Again, sorry, with the caveat that I would probably make it an unexplored place that's not already inhabited by a humanoid species that has an established civilization. It's some wild new continent that has appeared because of magic, or, you know, it's on the other side of the globe and no one's ever traveled there, or, you know, the disc or whatever your world looks like. But yeah, I think it'd be fun to like pit your party against some other group who's racing to discover some land and kind of like be the first ones to find all of its secrets and then return with all the most valuable stuff to their benefactors, whoever that is, to make them rich. I don't know. There's just a lot of exciting fun to be had with exploration, and you can kind of throw whatever you want at them because it's a place that no one's been before. So who knows what it's like? Who knows what lives there? Who knows what consequences will be found?
It makes me think of, there's certain pieces of the Forgotten Realm where this could easily happen. You know, the Elvish Isles in the West. You could easily make it. And I feel like that's probably where my head goes first is to sail. And then immediately that means I don't want to do it. So I would definitely think of like some barren landscape to trek across, and be the first person to be on the other side.
There's a bunch of Polynesian lore that you could draw from too, as the Polynesian people spread throughout the Pacific. You know, they found new islands, they would establish, you know, settlements, and then some would inevitably decide to keep sailing and explore more. So there's just fun. The spirit of exploration, it just stirs something inside you, you know.
The shortest pillar of the three. All right, we going movie then?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, some of these may be ridiculously easy, but that's okay. The party stumbles upon a hidden truth. Their world is a meticulously crafted simulation designed to control and exploit its inhabitants. As they unravel the secrets of this prison, they must decide whether to liberate themselves and risk exposing the fragile illusion of their reality, or remain trapped in a world of lies and deception.
There is no spoon.
There is, in fact, no spoon. And it is, in fact, The Matrix.
Yeah. That's a good one, though. I mean, it's classic. One of those 1999 movies we were talking about with what was it, JR? Anyway, I love it. A lot of different ways you can take this. Who is creating this simulation? Is it tech? You know, is it tech that we're dealing with? Like, does this fantasy world exist because there's some modern world that has created it, and that's what you live? Or is it magic and some magical forces have created something artificial and you are all living there? I don't know, kind of like you could make it Hunger Games-esque where it's like you all live here and you fight these crazy battles and wars and monsters because there's a bunch of really rich magical beings watching you, you know? A lot of fun ways you could do it.
And one of the things is like, I think of it like, so it's an anime term where it's an isekai where basically but often those, and I don't know if it's required of the genre. I have not delved deep enough to say whether or not it is, but like oftentimes those are presented with a lot of pre-knowledge of like, I know I'm going into this game and now I am stuck in this game. I think of Sword Art Online, Rising of the Shield Hero. And so there's this level of awareness, which is interesting because like with the Matrix premise, like you become aware, and to some degree then like it has those elements of it because you are trapped in a video game basically. And so it would be interesting to reverse engineer the fact that you're trapped in a video game and what do you want to do about it?
All right, listeners, hit us with your opinions. Leave us an iTunes review and tell us whether or not you think The Matrix is an isekai or not.
Oh.
It would be cool also, last thing, if like you're kind of Rick and Mortying it in the idea that like it really is, this world is like full of people whose life force basically just powers something else.
Yeah.
Like you're all a battery. So
Oh, do you mean the thing that they're actually doing in Japan? Where
What?
you're basically because it's like the Google Stompers or whatever, and then basically that powers Rick's battery for his car.
Yeah.
He just has an entire universe
And his
and
phone.
population that he made.
Yeah.
And I use it to charge my phone. And the Stephen Colbert guesting. They're actually, I saw this today. They're actually doing that in Japan, that basically as you step, the step pushes down and creates energy.
What step where?
Just as like on a walking path. So like so many people are walking so much through certain areas. So like in the subway, rather than just them walking on normal concrete, their steps and the motion of those steps from the people, basically the energy expenditure of walking is then being harnessed to make energy.
Incredible.
It is just Rick and Morty, but yeah.
I mean, yeah, it sounds like Rick and Morty with extra steps, but oh man, that episode made me laugh harder than almost all of them.
Yeah, that's up there, definitely.
Okay. This plays very much off the idea of the setting of Dark Sun, which has not been updated for either 4E or 5E or 5.5, 6, whatever we're calling it. So obviously there'll be a lot of people who are familiar with it already, but if you're not, I think it's a really fun idea. The idea of a finite well of magic that exists, and once it is used up, it is all gone and there will be no more magic. The world of Dark Sun takes it a step further and says the sun like is being powered by this magic, and so once all of the magic has been used up, the sun goes dark and there's no more sun anymore, and we all inevitably die because the planet surface plunges to, negative 273 Kelvin and we just freeze. But anyway, the finite magic well is kind of fun because you could do it in a few different ways. You could do it where the world has a finite magic well, or maybe a particular land or a class of spellcaster has some kind of well that's limited. Or, like an individual person, you are born with a finite amount of magic, and once you have used it all, you don't get any more unless there's like some weird way to get more. And so from there, you could kind of, tell your story like, oh, someone found out how to suck magic from other people. And so there's the bad guy who is like withdrawing magic from others to like keep using it himself to harness it. Or, I don't know, there's a dozen different ways you can take it. But I like the idea because making a resource finite obviously makes it more precious. And then it kind of adds a bunch of new twists and problems that your players will have to deal with in order to overcome that obstacle.
I don't think my idea is a good idea. I will say it, and then that is what it is. But the idea of giving everyone a pool, a resource pool to work off of, so that they truly have a finite amount of magic. And what do they do with that? Like, how willing are they? But I mean, I know myself, and so like my hesitation with the entire idea is I'm the, my character is the one that dies in the desert with a full canteen of water. Or like I went down and all my health potions are still on me. Or like I finish a game and I'm like, cool, all these resources I just didn't use. I hard moded the entire time. So that is my hesitation, or the hesitation that someone just does wish at first level. But the idea of having a finite resource is always an interesting thing, because I think it does force your players into like certain avenues. Yeah. And bare minimum, you learn more about each person's play style.
I feel like I remember you and Celeste, talking about an idea like this on a DMnastics episode where it was like, 10 rules to make the game way harder for your players. I don't remember what exactly it was called, but it was just like really crazy homebrew to make the game super hard. And one of them was something like this, where it's like every spell they have, they can only cast it like, I don't know, 20 times or whatever. And so like, it's like, all right, how much do I want to use the spell in this situation before I rely on something else? Yeah, I think there's a fun way to do it where you could just give everybody a few spells and they play a martial class or something like that. So it's not just, the wizard is screwed at high levels because they have nothing left to use. But another fun twist I feel like is kind of the Aladdin idea where he's got 3 wishes and he promises that one of them is for the genie to be free. And so, how is he going to solve the problems with the other 2 when his back is against the wall and he really feels like he needs that 3rd wish, Anyway.
I like it. Okay, that puts me, I think, at a show.
Yeah.
Okay, this was interesting. We have to see how... I guess I'm going to give a clue initially, is that it's not a new show.
Okay.
So, in a seemingly quaint, sleepy town, there's a shocking murder that shatters the peaceful facade. As the party delves deeper into their investigation, they uncover a sinister underbelly filled with supernatural entities and ancient secrets. The town's dark history, coupled with the looming presence of the supernatural, creates a chilling and suspenseful atmosphere.
Is it Twin Peaks?
I feel like I've been bamboozled. I got sharked. He said he didn't know, but he knows them all. It is, in fact, Twin Peaks.
Yes.
I mean, I feel like the murder being the thing that breaks the facade is kind of the crux of the entire show, but
yes. It's spooky season, so my mind is on Twin Peaks anyway.
Perfect.
Also, I've been playing a Kids on Bikes game with my home group because I convinced them to do this for Halloween, so I've been thinking about it because of that. I recently listened to an actual play called Kolok, Kollok. It was done by the Hyper RPG folks a while ago. One of the guys who's the GM used to work at Geek and Sundry and helped launch Critical Role, I guess. Anyway, that's a Kids on Bikes actual play, and he draws heavily from Twin Peaks. But yeah, it was a guy in my home game, shout out Christian, who asked me one day, he's like, have you ever seen this? And I was like, no, I have no idea what that is. And he's like, well, you should watch it because it's weird.
Yeah.
And you're weird. And he didn't say that, but like basically like you would like this because it's weird and offbeat. And I totally did. So
it's a good one. Yeah. And there's so much there. And it is also fun to like start small, work big, because then you could just have it be a random town. And it's, there's always big to small to big, depending on how you want to flesh out your world. There is nothing ever wrong with the idea of just starting in a town and just going out from there, building out the pieces you need, and literally nothing more. It is the fog of war. It's how I do a ton of things. Like, number one among them is like my pantheons. It doesn't. But if something comes up, then I just start to define it. Do I have a cleric? Do I have a paladin? Do I have a warlock? Do I have need for some sort of organization? And then I start filling those blanks in. So yeah, this is always a great way to start, and then just have them build out from there to say, oh, I want to go to the mountain range that come, like, oh, that's right, the mountains, or this forest is the problem, or so yeah, that's why I like this one.
Totally. I'm the same with pantheons too. Like, I just can't be bothered to spend hours fleshing out a bunch of deities that no one's ever going to ask about or care about. Like, I don't know, if you're playing a really heavily religious game, then I could see it being a big deal. But I'm like you, I just would rather spend the time thinking about other stuff and then fill in the blanks when it needs to be done. Cool. All right. My next one is releasing an ancient evil, a very classic trope. And I feel like there's a lot of different stuff out there that plays on this. But, your party does something or says something, or someone in town does something, and it releases this extra dimensional being, demon, lich, whatever it might be, from their cage. And then you have to figure out how to put them back in again before they destroy everything. Lots of fun to be had. It's fun because you can make it so that this ancient evil scales with the party, right? If they're released, maybe they're not very strong yet, and they've got to gather power, and that's part of the conflict, is trying to stop them from doing whatever they're doing to grow stronger and stronger and stronger before they become unstoppable. Again, like, it's all over the place, but I feel like if done well, you could have a ton of fun with it.
I always love this trope being unaware, like the reasons that it happens, the people that do it is
right,
just don't quite know what they've done, or even leading up to it, like, it'll be fine, like, what a great idea that we have, like, Cthulhu, my buddy, and it's like, or as an alternative, you are typically the first to die. And then it cascades out from there. So like part of me always wants to lean into kind of that bumbling nature of it rather than just the like really hardcore evil person that manages to pull it off. Mm-hmm. Like that, or almost needing like some level of innocence to be the catalyst, that kind of thing. Like I will always lean that direction.
Yeah, I very much like that part of it too, where it's always the academic or whatever that's just trying to learn more.
I'll just read this book out loud. No.
Yeah, I'll press the red
button. School taught you to read out loud. Movies taught you don't.
Beetlejuice. Okay.
Speaking of movies, lost in a strange and magical land, a young adventurer sets out on a perilous journey to find a legendary sorcerer. Along the way, they'll encounter a motley crew of companions, each with their own unique abilities and quirks. Together, they will face terrifying creatures, solve ancient riddles, and navigate treacherous landscapes, all in the hopes of finding the sorcerer who can grant their wish to return home.
On the yellow brick road?
Indeed.
With Pink Floyd playing in the background.
Oh, yeah. You got time. You don't even need to time it perfectly anymore. They got websites for that, man.
Let me tell you, this was like the third or fourth time I did something with my now wife. I thought it would be a good idea to invite her over and to do that with some friends. And she did that, and she sat through it, and she still married me. So, there's something to be said for that.
Yeah. She was like, this guy needs help, and I'm the one to give it.
That's probably what it was. But yeah, Wizard of Oz classic. So much to be had there. I watched the stage production of that a few years ago locally, and it was really good. The sets and stuff, it's fun. And the meeting people along the way is also fun if you can do it correctly. I feel like maybe you could do that in the first session, just to introduce characters or something. But yeah, the wizard, not really being who they say they are is also fun too. Little bait and switch at the end there, red herring.
So our next question is, listeners, please leave us a review and tell us if you think that the Wizard of Oz is an isekai as well.
It totally is.
Yep. I know I make that joke, but I'm also like, you could have that. You could definitely be on that side of that discussion. I get it.
I'm trying to think if there are earlier examples. A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, maybe. Mm-hmm. That's a really deep pull, and if anybody has read that beside me, I'll be impressed.
I've listened to it as read by Nick Offerman.
Oh, yeah.
Back to you. What do we got?
A group of morally gray anti-hero bounty hunters are given some jobs, and then all of a sudden they're given a job that crosses even their moral boundaries, and they have to decide if they're going to do it or not, and what the consequences will be.
Are they driving Mini Coopers? This is not the Italian Job.
They could. I love the Italian Job. It wasn't that specifically, but totally. And they're stealing a safe from what's his name's house? What's the actor?
Oh, that's right.
Flip. I can see his face.
Is this the Fast and the Furious?
Actually, wait. Why didn't I think of that? I should have just made one for every single Fast and Furious movie. Oh. Next year. That's what I'm going to do.
I like it. So one of the best things about like this idea is that like you have to, if you ever dip into the idea of playing a more, if not completely air quote, evil campaign, you have to have a framework by which they all care enough to stay together. And I think this helps a lot to be like, okay, but this is still a line I don't want to cross. You think of like the evil person who's also like, I often think of the Lex Luthor. I'm like, yes, that's all well and good, and I'm going to get mine. But here's the deal. If this other person is about to actually blow the world up, that's not going to work for me. And I will absolutely give Superman, Batman, or anybody in between all the resources I have to ensure that doesn't happen. Will I end up looking amazing while doing it? You bet. But the world being blown up is not beneficial to me.
Yeah, totally.
In the realm of warring kingdoms, dragons, and magic, a thrilling game of political intrigue unfolds. As each faction vies for control of the throne, players find themselves caught in a web of deception, alliances, and dangerous quests. The fate of the entire realm hangs in the balance, demanding their courage, cunning, and unwavering loyalty.
Is there a giant ice wall to the north?
Indeed, there is. We don't have to talk about the later seasons where they forgot about everything that had happened before, or the fact that George R.R. Martin was definitely at their disposal at all times. But yes,
I mean, he hasn't even written books to catch up with where they got to. So
at some level, first off, yes, I would love it to be done, but at some level, I think he's just bummed.
Maybe.
I just genuinely think he's bummed out about how they landed that plane, and then seeing the visceral reaction of people and that threat ever looming before him to say, I don't know what I want to do. I'll just write for Elden Ring instead. But I do like this one because it's difficult. Like, so let's preface first and foremost, any political intrigue campaign that you want to do is very difficult. And with that, though, I will say it is one of the most important to steal the player's ideas and go with what they're starting to figure out. Because essentially you've made not just a part, but your entire campaign to some degree is a puzzle that they have to solve. And so, like, taking the answers or the threads that they're pulling and pulling them with them is absolutely imperative to any political intrigue campaign that you set up. Because you don't want to feel like at the very end, they feel like the rug's been pulled out from under them, or you at the very end feel like they never found the things you were trying to give to them.
Yeah. A lot of great places to pull from too. Like, there's a ton of stories of real life wars over succession that got super messy and like very convoluted. And, but yeah, Game of Thrones, especially the first few seasons, like you said, some of the best TV out there, in my opinion.
Yep.
Also not very family friendly, but
no,
pretty cool.
Cultural phenomenon. And yeah. No.
All right. My next idea is another classic trope, and it is the Chosen One prophecy. A lot of different ways you could do this, a lot of different ways you could implement it. Is it chosen ones? Is it the group? Is it one of the group? Is it supposedly one of the group, but not actually, and then it ends up being somebody else? Or is the group the ones that are in charge of creating the prophecy that will choose the person in the future? Flip that thing on its head and let them kind of like set the stage and decide on the requirements and how they will be fulfilled in the future to continue protecting the realm.
I like the flipping it on its head because that works a lot better. I mean, it's so much more difficult to buy into a single player having that level of responsibility.
Yeah,
it can work. I'm not saying it can't. It's tough. It's tough to say, hey, a certain amount of the spotlight will forever be on this individual because they are the chosen one and the rest of you are not. And that can be okay because the chosen one often, in most really well written stories, I think of like Superman stories or things like that, he never attributes all of it to himself. It is the cast of characters around him supporting him that make him into the person he becomes. If you can pull that off, sure. Or you have it where they are the chosen ones, like they are a group that comes together and it is the group that has always been spoken of, or the 5 or the whatever number that you need it to be. And of course, flipping it completely on its head and being like, or like you said, you're setting the stage for the chosen one. I guess the other option is also just having it be
an NPC.
Yeah, also super tough to land. But
I mean, I feel like you could do it if the NPC was a child or like not yet powerful or something like that, where like you have to protect them. They can't protect themselves because they haven't been trained, they haven't unlocked their power, they haven't gone through the rite, they haven't, done whatever. That would be fun too, like an escort kind of mission to get them to safety to make sure that civilization can continue or whatever it is.
I think that puts me back on movies.
All right.
In a daring heist campaign where a group of skilled thieves specialized in the extraordinary by infiltrating, guys, you're going to figure it out. I hope you figure it out immediately. By infiltrating the dreams of powerful individuals, they can steal valuable secrets, plant subversive ideas, or even manipulate their target's reality. Their missions are fraught with danger and require a deep understanding of the subconscious mind, making for thrilling adventures filled with mind-bending challenges and unexpected twists.
You're talking about dreams. Yes.
Did the top fall? Did it not? Who knows? Fun fact. People know, but they're never going to tell you because they don't want, and thank you, creators, of just leaving certain questions unanswered, because that's okay. And the conversations are sometimes better than the answers.
Loved that movie. That's one of those movies where my wife asked me.
It's Inception, by the way. We've not said that.
Sorry, Inception. Yes. My wife asked me, if you could go back and watch a movie again for the first time, what would it be? That's always my answer until I watch something better. But I watched that in college when it came out, and we drove like 30 minutes to go to a nice theater, because I was in college in a very small town. So we drove 30 minutes south to a very nice theater so we could actually like have good seats to watch it. We were super hyped, and it blew us away, and it still is just so good. I love it.
Yeah.
Fun little tidbit. We talked about Knocked Prone at the top of the episode here, one of the shows that's joining us on the Block Party Podcast Network. Knocked Prone's current season, called Dead Season, is not exactly like Inception, but the idea is that each of the 4 characters has died and they are in some kind of purgatory place, but they are jumping through the memories of each player and learning more about their backstories and why they are the way they are, how they came to be where they are in purgatory, all that good stuff. And it is very much kind of like Inception, the idea of going in through all these layers, because they like jump through one person's memories to a portal into another person's memories. And they're like, I don't know, 5 layers deep at this point. In this thing, being chased by unknown villains and that kind of thing. So if you like Inception and you like this idea and you want to know, how could I pull that off in a fantasy world using D&D-like mechanics? Yeah, check out Dead Season.
Perfect. What's your next idea?
All right. I feel like this is similar to something I said last episode, but I think it is different enough that I'm going to roll with it, and it is forbidden magic types. The idea is that instead of it being like a place where all magic is forbidden, maybe a town has forbidden a particular school of magic, and there could be a myriad of reasons why they have done this. But the classic example is no necromancy, no bringing people back from the dead. But if you have noticed, dear listener, a lot of the healing spells are necromancy spells.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of fun to be had there. Wherever you are, they refuse to heal people, but also refuse to bring people back from the dead, because both things are cheating death in some way. Or you could do like no conjuration because of this, or no divination because no person should know the future. There's a ton of different ways you can go about this, and like why the town or the organization or the world would ban these kinds of things because they are against what the natural order or how things should be, and kind of like fighting against it or figuring out why, changing people's minds. Anyway, I feel like there's a bunch of different things you could do with that, but it always has sounded kind of fun to me to give them that extra problem to solve.
It's interesting because of how quickly I felt I was able to make arguments against most schools of magic that you brought up.
Right.
Which is because the idea of conjuration is, where did it come from?
Yeah.
What are you doing to that? Like it clearly, whatever you've brought forth lacks a level of agency. Some of the higher level spells get into potentially like a back and forth with it, but the vast majority of them are like, are you stealing it from somewhere and it's just dying a weird death, and does it go back? Are you prestiging it? Like, I don't know.
That's a good movie too. Wow.
Yeah. So like, I don't know, like, where does that line, evocation of like the destructive power of that, like, not cool. Don't do that, please. Divination, privacy. Seriously, don't do that. Necromancy. Come on. Like, even down to the lower level of like, okay, are you messing with the natural order too much? You keep healing these people. Should they not have died? But you are stepping in the way of that. Like even doing enough healing magic to basically bring forth like the ire of some specific deity to say, hey, quit. So it's really interesting how easy it is in my head, I guess, to argue against most magics. And so, you could have, is it like you were saying, like, is it an entire order? Is it certain individuals? Is it deities? Is it, who knows?
Yeah. Is it you having to go visit David Bowie in a mysterious Colorado mountain town to find the secrets?
Yes.
Oh, man. The Prestige, another good movie that everyone should go watch again.
Yep. A group of survivors shipwrecked on a mysterious island find themselves entangled in perilous adventure. The island, shrouded in ancient secrets, is teeming with magical creatures and hidden dangers that threaten their survival. As they explore the unfamiliar terrain, they must unravel the island's mysteries and find a way to escape before it's too late.
How did they get lost?
They watched the finale. Hey-oh!
You know what? I've only watched like the first episode or two of Lost, so I knew what it was, but I admittedly have not seen this all the way through. Given, again, like Game of Thrones, how everyone reacted to the ending, I haven't ever committed to it because so many people were so angry with it that I'm just like, do I care? Yeah. But maybe one of these days I'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, Lost has a lot of elements that could be taken to be campaigns. And I think it is a good way to add mystery to your stranded island kind of campaign. I've certainly ran them before, where everyone was, I mean, and there's so many reasons why you can be stranded. Is it that everyone like basically got sick and you capsized and crashed? Is it that a plane? Is it, all of these different methods by which you can arrive on the island, but planning enough mystery to not just make it just some absolutely harrowing experience of like they're tracking, levels of exhaustion or each morsel of food that they're finding, or do they have clean water? I mean, that's a campaign you can run, but I feel like the vast majority of people don't go that direction.
My next one is another classic fantasy trope, The Lost Heir. And by heir, I don't mean A-I-R, I mean H-E-I-R. The Lost Heir. So the king or queen or emperor or empress or whatever, the person who is in charge of the place that you live's child who is supposed to replace them has been missing for a long time or just went missing, whatever it might be, and you are tasked with finding them, where they went, why they left, who took them, whatever, and bringing them back so that the succession of the throne is peaceful and successful and doesn't go to the awful, uncle or whatever that's lined up instead. There's a lot of good stuff out there for Lost Heir. Again, kind of like I said, pretty classic. There's a book that I read as a kid called The Secret of Platform 13. It is by the author Eva Ibbotson, and it was released 4 years before the first Harry Potter book, and there's a ton of similarities, and a lot of people have been like, yeah, JK just straight up plagiarized this book for her first book, and I can totally see how and why, and if you have read it, or if you go read it, you will see how and why, but the book is basically about this magical fantasy land that exists outside of our world. But to travel to our world, they go through a particular platform in King's Cross Station in London to get here. And a kid who was from the fantasy land, who was like supposed to be the heir to the throne in the fantasy land, was accidentally left on basically a field trip when they came to our world to like mingle with the normal folk for a little bit. They accidentally misplaced this child. And so like 7 years later or whatever, when the portal opens up again, they come back to try to find them and determine who they are. Anyway, like tons of stuff that's like basically, wow, yeah, that's straight from Harry Potter. Anyway, but yeah, really fun idea for like where the heir might have gone and why. That gives you some ideas. But yeah, I think it's a fun one. Tons of different ways you could take it. A lot of mystery to be had.
Yeah, I like the idea of like it being an arc potentially of like kind of mixing up whatever you have going on in your campaign and having it be that the players need to jump realms basically to figure out, oh, well, like, okay, it makes sense. No wonder no one has found them here. They are not here. And jumping through, like, do you have it be that they go to Dark Sun for a little bit, or that they go to Planescape, or that they do a little spell jamming, like whatever version you think would obviously entice your players the most, but you could easily add that in to just like have that flavor.
Mm-hmm. And, a lot of different reasons for why they left. Were they kidnapped? Were they taken? Do they not know who they are anymore? Did they leave on their own accord and they aren't interested in doing this anymore? There's a lot of different ideas and kind of ways to solve it. All right, Neal, I'm ready.
A powerful time-traveling villain has learned of a prophecy that could spell doom for his reign. To prevent its fulfillment, he sent his minions back in time to destroy the prophecy's source. A group of unlikely heroes must band together to protect that prophecy and stop the villain from altering the course of history.
This is so familiar.
Yeah, it's there, and when you hear it, you'll see how it connects. But this one, yeah, I got the numbers filed off a little bit better on this.
A time-traveling villain is sending his minions back in time to destroy a prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Several movies.
There's a lot. Oh, there's a whole set of movies for this?
Mm-hmm. There's 6.
6?
First one was in 1984.
84.
And the last one was in 2019.
All the same series?
I mean, I can give you one line and it's over. But
man, I've gotten everyone so far.
Come with me if you want to live.
Oh, dang it.
Yeah.
Of course. I was so hung up on the villain, but like I had envisioned them as a person when they are not a person. They are a whole network entity. Yeah, you did a good job of obfuscating that one.
Yeah, so I mean, but that's the thing is like you still need to like frame it that way. Like you do like, and even putting more of a figurehead on the idea, I think works even better, but like maybe not having it be that way. I mean, obvious, the easier version for this is like, it's the Warforged. Is it the Lord of Blades? Is it, sending back in time to do, okay, we could just set this in Eberron, and basically the Lord of Blades is sending back specific Warforged to before the
That'd
day
be
of
incredible.
warning.
There's so many ways to do it, and it could be so fun. And like, even if your players know exactly what you're doing, they would still have a ton of fun with it. Yeah, I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle. Oh man, I referenced this exact movie in my game last night because again we were playing Kids on Bikes, but I said it in 1991. The year where Terminator 2 came out.
Nice.
And so I was having a bunch of kids be dressed up as the Terminator for Halloween, like, and quoting the movie. Man, well done. Well, that was a good riddle.
Nice.
Okay. My next one is The Lost Civilization. So a lot of ideas with this one, but the obvious one is Atlantis because it's the most famous one, I feel like, from our world. And the Disney animated movie was really cool, and I feel like you could do something really fun with this where you are somehow your characters know a lot about it, but just haven't had the resources or the abilities, and then all of a sudden a rich benefactor shows up and is like, I'm going to pay you guys and I'm going to gear you up and you're going to go find this place for me because I want you to either find this thing or find, I don't know, make me rich by bringing me back a bunch of treasure. Or maybe they're just doing it because they want to prove themselves right when everyone else thinks that they're crazy. Yeah, a lot of fun ways to do it, but you could do a ton of cool stuff while they are looking for it. You could send them in the wrong direction a few times and make it a whole campaign, or it could just be a quick one and done. I feel like there are a lot of cool adventure tropes to be had within the looking for the lost civilization. Are they still alive? Are they not? Who knows?
Yeah, and the other is, going back a little bit to some of the other ideas is like what are your clues? Like it's always a good thing to think about is like, what are the things that are hinting at it? Like, don't get me wrong, heavy-handed exposition happens. Like I do it, you do it, everybody needs to do it from time to time because there's just certain things you're like, look, we just got to say these things and then we're going to move forward off of them. I also like the idea of a ship or someone washing up on shore who's, in a bad way. And are they looking to have you help find it again? Like knowing full well, like they need to leave to find help, knowing that it will then also still be difficult to get back to this lost civilization.
That's a good trope too. Like the dying traveler. What movies have used that where it's like the person shows up and they're stabbed and they're bleeding out and they like tell you one thing, one hint, one whatever. I don't know, like Treasure Planet does that.
Green Lantern with
Ryan sure. Treasure Island, Treasure
cinematic
Planet.
masterpiece.
Anyway, it's a good one. The dead and dying person. The only problem is in D&D they're gonna either speak with dead or they're gonna bring them back to life or something stupid. Or they're gonna give them a health potion immediately. So many loopholes.
Oh, I would have it that I mean, even in that scenario, I have it that the person doesn't know how to get back.
Yeah, that's fair.
That they just knew that they needed to leave to get help, and then we still have to unravel that. You certainly have them there to help with that process, but it is not instant. Not instant.
I like that. Okay.
A team of investigators, from seasoned agents to skeptical rookies, are tasked with uncovering the truth behind a series of bizarre occurrences. As they delve deeper into the mysteries, they encounter strange creatures, ancient conspiracies, and a world beyond their wildest imaginations. Their journey will test their courage, their trust, and their very sanity.
I feel like you've obfuscated this one pretty well, too, here.
I did from the start. So if I were to say a pair of investigators, a seasoned rookie, and a skeptic, or a seasoned agent.
This is a show?
A skeptical rookie.
X-Files.
Yes.
Aha!
Yes.
That's what was on my mind, but when you made it more than one or more than two people, I was like, ooh, team. I mean, I guess they have friends and other agents and stuff, but yeah, X-Files, classic. So many, every episode you could do something with, really.
Yep. And it could be the kind of thing, are you set up to have more of a cast of characters that rotates? Are you running at your local game store and you're one of the more open tables so that, you never know who you're going to have, which is totally fine. But often my big piece of advice in those scenarios is really having a monster of the week style. You can have through lines. You can have it where people know more than others. Certainly, but having that vibe of just encapsulated, you start somewhere, you end somewhere, it's done. And the X-Files is a perfect example of kind of how to finish those things.
Yeah, another Vince Gilligan joint there, so classic.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right, my next one is pulling straight from the Jules Verne novel, Journey to the Center of the Earth. So you could do this in a lot of different ways, but is it exploring the Underdark? Is it trying to get to the core of the planet because there is something at the core of the planet that we've been told about or that we think is there? Or, is there a bunch of magic there? Is there a giant crystal that keeps the planet floating where it does in the cosmos? So many different reasons why you might want to go to the center of your Earth. But there's so much cool stuff you can do while you're down there in the Underdark. D&D has a ton of cool Underdark stuff. The novel itself, Journey to the Center of the Earth, has a bunch of fun ideas about what might be down there and how you encounter it and the different problems you find. It's good because it's a long journey and your resources have to be limited to what you can carry and what you can scavenge from who knows what you're going to find down there. So could be a fun kind of game for people who are looking for more survival and being really creative with what they find and what they can do with it instead of just looting another castle and finding another host of magic weapons to decide whether to keep or to throw away.
It's such an interesting trope because often the lore surrounding our own Earth is the like inner Earth, or
The mantle?
What's the weird thing that King Kong? No, but the idea of like there's a world
right.
inside of our world, like with like the basically given the space that we inhabit on the surface, the whole thing where like as low as the Mariana Trench is compared to the highest mountain in the world, if the Earth was the size of a marble and a cosmic being were to hold it, it would be more smooth than literally anything we have ever created on the surface of the Earth, which is also to then say that the space inside of our planet is so vast that there's just, concepts of like, well, then what's in there? Like how much is truly inside of the Earth? And are there things that we still just don't know about? Like there's a giant, like in fact, the Marvel universe, we're just a giant egg. There's a whole being inside of there, or like there's a whole world inside of our world, kind of concept.
I know what you're talking about. I just can't remember what it's from, but that's from a few different things.
Either.
I feel like.
I can't.
Yeah.
It's a term. Yeah. Hollow Earth. It's called Hollow Earth theory. Exploration down is an interesting concept. Obviously, you have the Underdark and things like that, but I still feel like even that conceptually doesn't go as far as we think it does, like in the grand scheme of a world and like how much theoretical space there can be.
Yeah, like what are the Drow afraid of, that's below them? Who knows?
Okay. I had show. I have one that's both, and that means I'm just gonna do it right now, and we'll see how that goes. I guess that gave you a clue. A crew of intrepid adventurers on their ship boldly venture. I gave it up. Boldly venture into uncharted depths of the cosmos. They encounter alien civilizations from benevolent to malevolent, and must navigate the treacherous cosmic phenomena while grappling with the moral dilemmas of interstellar exploration. Their journey is a test of their courage, their camaraderie, and their understanding of the universe's vast and mysterious tapestry.
Boldly going where no one has gone before. Yeah, classic.
Engage! It's interesting because I also love the idea of recently on Adam Savage's YouTube channel for Tested. He was from Mythbusters, and now he has that one person asked. He does like a live Q&A, and someone asks like, "What is the sci-fi world you think we're like?" Basically, you think we're going towards. And his thing was like, "I would love that I would be right to say that we were moving more towards Star Trek, where like the basic needs of humanity are just no longer a question. And what do we do next? We truly head to the stars and interstellar travel happens." He said, but it's Black Mirror is where we're actually going, unfortunately. But yeah, so like kind of setting aside all of these things and like exploration and, going back to kind of the one that you had said, are you spell jamming? Are you just dealing with these weird phenomena? Are you engaging with other extraterrestrial life in a way that's just like, like, are you following the Prime Directive or some amalgamation of it to say like, we can observe and report, but we don't need to engage unless it is for our own safety sort of thing.
I love that. I have been wanting to play the Star Trek role-playing game for a long time, but I haven't found enough really nerdy people to do it with.
Oh, I know a person. The GM Tim has run several seasons of a Star Trek game. He makes a custom ship for it and adjusts it and things like that. And I've played it, and the layout that he has is immaculate. And it was very easy to be an NPC for one of the seasons. Like it was laid out for me. I was given like certain episodes to go watch to learn about like the kind of the storyline that they were in, because it's like TNG adjacent, like dirt, like the timeline and stuff like that.
So fun. Yeah, I love Star Trek. I haven't watched all of it, admittedly, but what I have watched, I have enjoyed immensely. All right, my next idea, very simple, murder mystery. This is great to throw in just as a one-off. Someone can't show up, or you need an idea, or spooky season is coming up and you need something to kind of mix it up and hit those fun themes that we explore this time of year. classic, it's at a party or something, or maybe it's just in a town. But yeah, a good murder mystery gives your players chance to use skills that sometimes they don't get to use very often. Murder mystery can be as simple or as complex as you want. It can last for as long as you want, or be, really short one session kind of thing. But you can drop it in literally any game at any time, and it will probably make sense.
I would lean kind of heavily into kind of the murder mystery theater kind of vibe of letting the players decide who did it. Having them I wouldn't have any of my players be the person that did it. It's not in me to navigate that kind of thing, but having them truly be the ones that decide and saying yes. And letting that dictate the story from there to say, yep, you're right, it was that person. And then what are the implications going from there? Because you could do wrongly accused, you could do bigger plot, you could do you done it, moving on to the next thing. Like you said, they're like it's complex or as long as you kind of need it to be, depending on what story you're trying to tell. I really can't decide which one I want to do next. I kind of feel like all of them might be really easy. But in this enchanting theme park, sentient magical creatures roam freely, their lives intricately woven into a carefully curated illusion. Yet, when a mysterious force begins to unravel the park's reality, the lines between fantasy and danger blur. The players must navigate this treacherous world, uncovering the secrets behind the chaos and ensuring the safety of both the park's inhabitants and their own lives.
My guess is Jurassic Park off the bat.
Ooh, no.
But you said Fantasy Park.
Sure.
You said fantasy inhabitants of the park? Theme park?
I said enchanting theme park. Sentient magical creatures roam freely.
Is this a movie?
No, this is a show.
A show about an enchanting theme park.
I got you.
I think you got me. I don't know.
Westworld.
Oh, enchanting. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
I see it.
If you can make this one work, this is another really good one. Again, it's really finding that point at which to drop that veil. And depending on your players, it could be something that you need to discuss more up front, because again, like certain players are not going to handle certain things in terms of just being like, ha! Some take it really well, some don't. And it could also be that you have a side discussion with that certain player. Which is like is definitely certain things that I've done before, where it's like I understand that like each person is different, the way certain things are going to land, but at the same time, so like, do you have to have like a quick discussion before a session or a quick discussion after a session, just making sure like you're kind of meeting each player where they're at. But that said, I think it would be super fun.
Again, you could do this Eberron style, right? It's like an Eberron theme park where it's a bunch of Warforged that are dressed up like humanoids and interact with you as such. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I like it. Okay. Summer Camp Mystery. A classic trope, good teen movies. Again, I was kind of thinking about spooky season time of year. It would be fun to run a one-shot or start a game where it's like you're all basically tweens or teens or something, and you can have some abilities and powers. What does fantasy summer camp look like? Who knows? You get to decide. But there could be all sorts of weird and strange things that happen while you are there, and you get to decide if there's something bigger or more nefarious pulling the strings behind it, or if it's not, and kind of unravel it from there.
It's always fun, especially if you like. Those are the kind of ones that, depending on a lot of factors, like such a fun one-shot idea, such a fun, group that maybe hasn't played before. So like you're giving different tropes that they can fall into easier, like pulling on your own summer camp memories if you have them, certainly. Or I mean, even the tropes from a million movies.
I did like scout camp a handful of times, but I have a theory that summer camp's like an East Coast thing. I don't know.
So it's it's less common here, but what I will say is that I volunteered for a camp that was for kids in the foster care system.
Okay.
Just to try and give them like a really, like just a week of not thinking about anything else other than having a great time.
Mm-hmm.
That was the goal of the camp from start to finish. And I volunteered there for like 15 years.
Oh yeah.
Yes. So I personally have in helping, and as that I started very young, in helping with it and like doing the skits and setting things up. And at the, like quickly I played drums for like the music stuff and all these things. So like I have 15 years straight basically of going to a camp. So yeah, I definitely have a lot to draw on, but what's interesting is like as more of a volunteer rather than someone that was going to those camps.
Uh-huh.
But even that, like, so for like the school system, one of the big things is outdoor education was like basically one, I forget which grade it was, but then you go to like a multi-day overnight camp stay thing. So,
and you would do like climbing and kayaking and
yeah. And like looking at tracks and going
and,
through and like going to the,
yeah, cool. Yeah, so that's it. Summer Camp Mystery, a lot of fun to. Yeah, I feel like there's tons of movies that you could use as inspiration, even just about camp life in general. Maybe not about mysteries, but
like Jason. No, I'm.
Yeah,
Perfect. All right. Speaking of movies, players join a tribe of fantastical creatures living in harmony with their natural surroundings. A powerful corporation threatens to exploit their land for its valuable resources, endangering their way of life. The players must rally the tribe and defend their home from the encroaching industrial forces.
Oh, it's Fern Gully, right?
Yes.
Avatar.
No, it's Fern Gully.
Oh,
I changed my answer. It's 100% Fern Gully, but it is also definitely Avatar.
Yeah, people have just joked that Avatar is Fern Gully in space. I remember Fern Gully being one of those movies that
it's Fern Gully plus
nightmares.
Pocahontas.
Yeah, for sure. It's a good one though. Yeah, I like it. It's kind of close to my last one.
Okay,
so that'll be fun.
Perfect. Yeah, it's right there. It's pretty easy. I mean, it is fraught with some peril. To depending on how close you get to certain aspects. That said, it is also an interesting concept that I've tried to play around with in my mind because spoilers for Avatar, I don't feel that way. That thing, everyone watched it. The box office results prove everyone watched it twice. Basically, like the idea of them becoming one of them is an interesting concept to me. I don't know that I would want to navigate that, but part of me wants to. Like, what an interesting concept to basically join a different world, join a different population of individuals, because you see some of yourself in them and realize that's where you want to be. And so then you become a giant blue person.
There's a name of a trope that is this exact thing where it's like, it's kind of almost isekai-ish. You show up in a different place, and then you are better than them at their stuff. And that's exactly what Avatar is. He's like, a Marine who shows up and then becomes better than them at like flying, like catching the monster and flying it and like leading them into battle and stuff. And it's one of those that a lot of indigenous people say they really don't like. So, just keep that in mind when you're, but I feel like if you're helping them, there's a lot of fun ways you could do it, where you're not like upstaging them at their own, rebellion or their own fight for freedom. So I think there's definitely a respectful way to do it. Okay. My next one here is Lost Memories. I feel like this is a better done as like the start of a game. My friend Matthew, who's in my home group, is actually running this kind of idea with one of his players in a new game they started a few months ago, where one of them remembers nothing previous to a few months ago, and so they don't know their real name or any of their real-life relatives, even though those people still exist in the city in which they live, and they are kind of... There's a whole mystery surrounding it, but like, why have I lost my memories? Where did I come from? Who am I really? And what significance does it have in like the conflict in my future? I think it's a ton of fun, and it's a way to kind of work with a person and figure out what stuff they are and aren't interested in and kind of like seed their backstory that way. But yeah, so long as there's a good trust between you and your players, I think you could do a lot of fun stuff with this.
It's interesting to think about also doing that with one character. Like I'd be okay with, like I said, with the Chosen One. That's interesting, but that's tough to give that spotlight to one character. This, no, I'd be super on board with one character not having their memory, because on a day-to-day basis, that's probably not always going to come up externally. Internally, they can play into that as much as they would like to, but because then I can choose those spaces and places that someone that recognizes them engages with it. And so then I can play with how much of that spotlight that they want to have, without it being like encompassing of, or is it that, you know, cause my thing is like, I tend to like giving characters arcs. Like, okay, we're going to kind of like delve into your stuff, or okay, now your stuff. The idea of like, you know what, you get a little bit more powerful, and then I seed the right clue to say, you know what, like maybe we really can figure this out. And then like, let's say the whole next arc is figuring out, okay, we got to know, like, who are you? Why are you this way? Isn't this the Bourne movies?
Yeah.
Doesn't he show up? Yeah. Yeah, so there's certainly different ways to look at it and approach it. Everyone not knowing, that's also can be fun, but again, that's a little tougher, because then that's always the thing that you're going to be talking about is like, oh hey Steve, and you're like, well, my name's Steve, I guess.
Have you seen Severance?
Yes.
That's no.
Okay.
You could do something kind of like that. That just came to me. Because I was thinking about it when you mentioned Jason Bourne. Bourne movies, Severance. There was another movie in the mid-2000s where a guy like agrees to do a job for millions of dollars, and he does it, and it lasts like 6 months, and then they wipe his memory, and he doesn't remember what he did or why, but he just has a bunch of money, and then he like slowly finds out that he did some crazy thing. Anyway, I don't remember who it was or why, but there is inspiration to be had out there from.
Yep. All right, you ready for another show?
Yes.
A group of adventurers in a seemingly quaint town stumble upon a series of strange occurrences. As they delve deeper into this mystery, they uncover a hidden world of supernatural creatures and dark forces lurking beneath the town's peaceful facade. The party must navigate dangerous encounters and solve cryptic puzzles to protect their loved ones and unravel the secrets of this otherworldly realm.
Stranger Things?
Yep.
Okay.
I pulled out the word, like I originally I had young. I was like, that's going to give it away way too fast if I say young adventurers. But yeah, Stranger Things. Absolutely. I mean, come on. I mean,
it is a D&D campaign.
It has D&D campaign in the D&D campaign.
I really hope they're going to land that plane, but it remains to be seen.
Yeah.
Next year, right? 2025 is the last season. It'll be interesting. I kind of feel like last season they were already jumping the shark. But anyway, seasons 1 and 2 were really good.
Oof, yeah. I'm hopeful.
Me too. All right. My next idea here, a strange festival in a town you come upon has the town on edge until you all find out that as part of this festival, someone in the town is to be sacrificed to ensure a good harvest. This is pulled straight from the short story called The Lottery. It was written in the mid-1900s, and I think it was published in the New Yorker, and a ton of people got super mad about it. But yeah, I remember reading it in school and then going and seeing a play in school as well that was like talking about the moral implications of this and like what it would be like to know that one of you is going to be sacrificed, and like, is it worth it or is it not worth it, and like what goes through everyone's minds, who's justifying it and what reasons are they justifying, or you know, what reasons do they use to justify this action. You know, you make it a cult, you could make it folk horror, a lot of ways you can go with this, but I think it could be a fun kind of one-off, like coming to this town, weird stuff's going on. Are we going to do anything about it? Are we going to intervene? Are we going to watch it happen? Do we have to participate? Up to you. At the end of the play, like, the lady's name gets drawn, and then everyone starts chucking rocks at her. They literally, like, stone this person to death. Like, that's how it ends at the end of the story. So it's tough.
Belief is a powerful thing.
It is, yeah. It's like literally we have to sacrifice someone in order to have a good harvest, kind of thing. Like, boy.
Correlation and causation is also an interesting concept, but I like the idea because it's like, yeah, what is the party's place in all of this? Mm-hmm. Is it to say, I mean, because there's such interesting, because you're posing a moral dilemma that simple initiative and attacks don't necessarily solve. It could be that I would be fairly heavy-handed to say that that's not an option, or illustrate that that's not an option to them somehow.
Right, like you have to keep goodwill with the townsfolk if they're going to help you do X, or I don't know, that you need the people in town to be on your side for whatever reason, and so
there's so many and they're so powerful.
True,
that
like, they could just
get wrecked.
Yeah, 1,000 peasants throwing stones. Yeah, like you're not going to make that many. The
old peasant railgun. Wham! They've perfected it in this town. But the idea that the other thing could even be deception. Do you have the right characters with the right skills with the right spells to basically say, "I will be the tribute," but then be okay after.
Feign death.
Mm-hmm. Feign death, or even bringing them back, or true repose and just like move them on. And you're saying like, okay, you've sacrificed them, but like they're still part of our party, and we'd like to bury them properly. And then you just realize, get outside of town, and be like, but I'm not, and then just go on about your business.
Or the nosy cleric just starts going and resurrecting the past sacrifices and like making the town really mad. Yeah, it's fun. There's so many things you could do here. So many ways it might go wrong or right.
Okay. Are you ready? Movie time. In the desolate wasteland, adventurers must fight for survival against mutated creatures, rival factions, and the harsh elements. Scavenging for resources and forming alliances with other survivors are crucial to their own chances of surviving. As they navigate this dangerous world, they'll uncover secrets about the cataclysm that destroyed civilization and face moral dilemmas that test their own humanity.
Movies? There are 5 of them?
Now? That sounds right. Yes.
Australia?
Yes.
We're talking Mad Max, baby.
We are indeed. I like it.
I love Mad Max. The first movie, the Road Warrior, is just crazy. I learned a lot of stuff when I watched it the first time. It was like pioneer, forerunner, like groundbreaking in its time for the camera angles they used on the cars and the chases and all sorts of stuff that no one had ever thought to do before. George Miller was doing, and it kind of like changed the way that car films and chase scenes and all that stuff gets shot nowadays. Kind of cool.
Yeah, and Fury Road it's impressive how good it was given how beloved its source material was.
Right. Like, he came and he did a 4th movie and just knocked it out of the park.
I saw that. I remember seeing that in theaters. I was in Costa Rica at the time. And it felt like their regulations of how loud they're willing to play things, not the same as America. It was deafening the entire movie.
That would have been a loud movie too, with all those engines and explosions and stuff. Cool. All right, third to last one here is taking inspiration from a show that I've talked about before and I love, and we've had the DM and player on before, Sneak Attack. A time jump. He didn't have this planned, read the DM. He mentions this in some like talk back parts of the show, but a time jump is super fun because it can be totally out of the blue and blindside your players and give them a whole new set of problems to solve because they are now all of a sudden X number of years, days, weeks, months, years in the future or in the past. I like time jumps because, you can do it so far in the future that everyone you know and love is long gone, or, a lot of people are still around, but they have figured you have been long dead because of the amount of time they haven't heard from you. Yeah, time jumps, I don't know. I've always wanted to do one and never have. And I think, I guess I've done one time jump to the past to undo something, but I've never done one forward and like had them deal with the emotional damage of seeing all their friends and family either dead or much older, and they've missed all this time with them.
I've been a part of one where it was a higher level Eberron campaign, and it was basically going back 1,000 years.
Was it to like
basically
stop the war?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And we chose to, as a party, we chose to sacrifice several things, avert the entire war, and then rebuild from there, knowing that we stopped it, and knowing you can't go back either. Like,
were there any Warforged in the party who just like turned into dust when you like stopped the war, kind of thing?
No, we didn't. We actually didn't have any Warforged in the party, and I was a dwarf, and basically,
really,
prior to that, I had already given up my paladin powers at one point to get something done. And then in going backwards, I had a like really specific build that was paladin and warlock. It was called a Satadin, single attribute dependent. But basically because I had also gone back so far in time, my patron didn't exist.
So you lost your paladin's powers and your warlock powers.
Mm-hmm. I was just a fighter, basically, like when I went back, a really smart fighter. And it's a really interesting concept of also like that I've also wanted to play with more of like a warlock. Do you have the powers that you have and you just don't have a way to get more, or do you just not have any because you don't have your patron? So
I love the wrinkles and the time jump. You're giving us ideas. Incredible.
Yeah. So there's a ton that you can do with time jumps, again, depending on how
deities,
how far,
and patrons not existing. Oh man.
Yeah, because you just deal with these questions at different scales. Because if you only go back a week, you have just as many questions, if not more, to deal with. Because you're like, I know exactly what I can change because we just did it. Or if it's like 1,000 years, like, okay, wait. Yeah, the ripples of that, like, are you creating, and then you can choose to get into it as deep as you want, but are you creating entirely different timelines? All of those things. But essentially, no matter how far you choose, there are so many questions that need answers.
Yes.
Okay. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
For this one, there's a series of standalone adventurers that delve into the eerie and unexplainable corners of the multiverse. Each adventure presents a unique and self-contained challenge, testing the party's courage, ingenuity, and resilience as they navigate bizarre worlds filled with otherworldly creatures, mind-bending puzzles, and unsettling secrets. This one might be harder.
Yeah. Okay. That was a guess. But like I didn't know. I don't know. Again, the party thing throwing me off. Like I'm thinking like a group of set characters. Okay, Twilight Zone. I like it.
Yes. Oh, each episode is just primed to be a one shot, to set off a campaign, to be.
And it's one of those shows that like was made 70 years ago and still holds up. Like,
oh yeah, totally
crazy.
Yeah, really well done short form storytelling. Like I've always thought in my head now, I know I am not capable of writing a novel. I think I have it in me to do some solid short stories. I just know that I can't do it the other way. And that's why I think that like, because short stories can just land just as hard as any novel, because you have to get in, you have to define, and you do what you're going to do. And then you bounce back out. You leave the reader with questions, certainly, but you also are giving them answers. So,
yeah.
And that happens with the Twilight Zone, because you're left with questions of like the morality of it, the choices that the person made. Just why does any of this even exist? Oh, well, next episode.
Nice. Okay. Second to last idea here. Groundhog Day.
Yeah, I'm in.
A bunch of stuff goes wrong or whatever. All of your characters die, and then you start over again, and they've got to figure out how to make all these terrible things that are happening not happen. Also, alternately, you could lean more heavily into, what was it called? Tom Cruise, Emily Blunt. It came out in like 2014 or 2015. Crap. It was really good, but it just like didn't do super well in the box office for some reason. It is called Edge of Tomorrow, and it was based on a comic or a manga called All You Need Is Kill. Really fun idea. He's basically like a PR person for the military, and I don't even know if he is military, but he disrespects the general, and the war is against aliens, so like that's where the supernatural element comes in. He disrespects the general. The general basically like says, "Fine, I'm going to send you to the front lines," and so he goes to the front lines. The first day, he gets into a fight. He shoots an alien. The alien's blood gets on him and like seeps into his bloodstream, and then he wakes up back at this basic training and like has to do the same day over and over again, where he meets his crew. They get in these war suits, head into battle, and he like slowly figures out how to get further and further and further until he can figure out how to break out of the loop. So I feel like with the right group of players who are like down for some repetition, it could be fun. A fun way to do this could be you letting them make a few rolls every day and like skipping the stuff you've already done. You could do like some of the stuff over and over and over again, but then you could skip some of the stuff, like not make them do the same combat. You know, like, all right, you got to fight these 5 kobolds again and again and again. That wouldn't be as fun. But like the delving further and like figuring out more and more and more before they die could be really fun.
I like it. I'm thinking about actual Groundhog Day, and you definitely don't want to run them through as many times as old Bill Murray did.
Yeah, months. It was like months and months and months. Yeah,
years, and like the director at one point basically said like 10,000 years. Went back more towards 10 years, and a lot of the math that people have done ballpark it around there from like basically 10 to 30 years of just repeating the exact same day. So it's not necessarily my suggestion, but it's just a fun fact. But the whole basis of that is also basically like him not knowing and just everything blending together. There was one with Andy Samberg recently.
Oh yeah, Palm Springs.
Yeah, that's another interesting one of just like you just have really interesting concepts that you can approach. But it's also to say that like you don't have to repeat whole sections anymore. Like you can just bring yourself up to the certain points that make sense. Or is anything different? And is that like a huge clue that something is different about the day, or something you did earlier in the day makes it different?
And you could lean really heavily into how the movies do it too, where like they realize like the first time they redo everything, you like still make them redo it because they're kind of figuring it out. And then the next few times when they have realized what's happening, but they're being snarky about it, you can give them like added consequences with the people they're dealing with and like the stuff they say that's sarcastic or whatever because they realize what they're experiencing. You can really lean into that stuff and like let them get killed by like people they're being mean to instead. And then like once they realize that they need to get further so they can't mess around like this, then you can start kind of like plowing through stuff. I think, I don't know. Like I said, it's got to be the right group. Everyone's got to agree and they've got to be bought in to like do it well. But I think it could be so fun.
All right, my last one. I would be remiss if I didn't do it. The party find themselves defending a small, isolated kingdom from a vast, monstrous horde. Led by a charismatic and resolute king, the heroes must rally the kingdom's forces and prepare for a seemingly impossible battle against overwhelming odds. As they stand at the narrow pass, the fate of the kingdom hangs in the balance.
Yes, of course. And Neal is of course referring to 300, the tale of the 300 Spartans who defended the pass. What's it called?
Thermopylae.
And one guy ran back, right, to the town of Marathon and collapsed after telling them that they had won the battle, right? Or that they were defending. Maybe is the Marathon myth the same as the 300? I swore they were related. Anyway.
Yeah, basically one person goes back and then they do get support and basically they're able to defend that area. But it is only through them doing so as those 300
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite pieces of history. It is one of my absolute favorite movies of all time. That is a one that I would be able to watch for the first time. I went to the midnight showing of that one.
I remember you saying, and you saw a bunch of guys dressed up like Spartans.
And the movie, the movie theater would not allow them to enter because they definitely didn't have shirts and were carrying shields and spears. So
incredible.
They were told no.
Incredible. Yeah, the Peloponnesian War was fascinating. The Persians coming to try to invade Greece, and then, Sparta and Athens and all these city-states having to band together where they hadn't really done that kind of thing, or they weren't really friends before. It's cool.
Yeah, and tons of D&D stuff that you can pull out of it. Then their arrows will blot out the sun, then we shall fight in the shade.
Yep. Make it a Theros campaign and just add that Greek flavor to it too. Could be fun. All right, my last idea is retaking the homeland. For some reason, one of the party, or maybe all of the party, is from a place that their homeland is no longer under the control of their people. It has been taken over by some evil force for some reason, whether it be resources or people or, land, like strategy, strategically owning that land for some other reason. But they have taken it over, and you and your friends are going to go take it back by whatever means necessary. I feel like there's a lot of fun elements that you can add in here, like guerrilla warfare. You can be covert. You can be out in battlefields doing that kind of thing. You can be doing storming the castle or sneaking in, infiltrating enemy forces. There's just so many different war movies and tropes that are out there that you can play on, and you can use all of them in different sessions, and each time it's going to be different and fun. And, the end result, defeating evil who has taken your homeland and winning it back, and your people being back where they belong. It would be just such a fun payoff.
I like that, especially because you could have every player be from there, or have a reason to care. I feel like that's the kind of one that you could easily fold into everybody's backstory to say, no, you care enough that this has happened, and you want to do something about it.
Yeah, that feels to me like a whole campaign, not just a kind of one-off thing, but you can kind of play with it however you want.
That leads us to our final one. What two shall we mash together, or what concepts that we've talked about would mash together well?
It's a great question. For those keeping track at home, I got 14 of 17. Neal had to give me 3 of them, so I feel pretty good about that, all things considered.
It's true. Yeah, and listener, if you got all 17 out of 17, definitely let us know. Or just let us know what your score was out of mine. And if you think I bamboozled you, let me know. Did you think my prompts were terrible? That's fine. I don't mind.
Yeah, that's a great point. Get in the comments, listeners, to quote Brendan Lee Mulligan and defend my honor. Tell Neal that he made it way too hard or too easy. Okay. Which 3 shall we combine? Or which 2?
So one of the ones that came to mind, and I find it really interesting, and because I always think about what do larger Spelljammer campaigns look like? What if we took your last one there and going back and taking back the homeland and my original Star Trek idea?
So it's like a home planet. A home,
or even it could be a sector, and so you've been doing these exploration missions, you've been doing the good work, if you will, and only to find out that behind you, it could be completely unrelated to the things you've done, it could be in direct correlation for something you set, some cascading effect that you set off, but basically you've figured out you need to go back home, and that's a fairly decent Star Trek trope as well, to say we haven't been on Earth in forever. Voyager's whole thing is they're lost and they got to get back. But the idea that
in the Delta
going
Quadrant
back to where you came from and taking it back or defending it.
So we're not doing 300. We're doing the Odyssey.
Yes.
the long journey home and all the stuff you encounter, and then you get home and there's a bunch of dudes in your house trying to get with your wife. Yeah. Okay. I like it. I like it a lot. I think that would be a lot of fun. Because the long journey home, that, maybe you get the news that your planet's been taken over, but you're so far away that it's going to take you a while to get there. And you got to encounter all this stuff on your way. And all the while, you're worrying about your family, your friends, everyone you know that is from there. Like, what is their status? We don't know if they made it out. We don't know if they're stuck there and they're, in prison or worse. And that could always be like gnawing in the back of your mind. But, all this stuff keeps getting in your way and preventing you from getting there. And then you finally do. And it's a whole thing to kind of like take back your world too. Yeah, it could be super fun.
Yeah, and it can also be the thing of like the whole stretch beforehand is figuring out how to push your ship to its limits, and that being a big aspect of it is you're one of the only ones that can do this kind of thing, or just having everyone work really well together to figure out like, okay, how fast can we truly go? How well can we really defend? And making that a big element.
Also, if you know who has taken over and what they are capable of, maybe a lot of your journey back is circling the wagons, finding allies from other worlds who you can convince, hey, this is a bigger threat than just my world. Your world is at stake too. Come help me. And, you could like do a bunch of political kind of jockeying to get people to join your cause. Maybe all of you are from different planets, and so you visit everyone else's home planet to try to convince their people to come help. Could be like a mind flayer incursion, like they're showing up, they've taken over your planet, and you can like convince everybody else, hey, this is going to be worse because they're just going to keep spreading and we have to stop it right now. We have to, kill this virus at the source before it keeps going. Ooh, I may just use that. That's a good one. I mean, all of these are good, but like, that's really good. I like it a lot.
Yeah. And with that, we have reached 300. There are 300 ideas and patrons. As you've been told, we're working on compiling all of those. Not an easy task, I realize, set before me, but we will definitely be able to. Some of them are easier. I have all of these written down, so I know where these are. But going back through and getting some of those other ones is a little more difficult, but I think it'll definitely be worth it, because it could just be an awesome way for you to decide what's next in your campaign, and honestly, for me to do the same thing.
All right. Well, listeners, it's been so fun to go through these 300 ideas with Neal and with all of you. We've talked about it throughout, but if you have some cool ideas that we haven't thought of yet based on movies or TV shows or anything else that you want to add to the list, you can hit us up on any social medias, whether it be Twitter/X or Threads or Instagram, or you can email us at dungeonmasterblock@gmail.com, or any of the other social medias that we are on or that we should be on that you are on.
Absolutely. And speaking of those, that is the perfect place to watch, because if you've listened this long, you are going to get a sneak peek at a thing that we are doing, and that is we're going to be giving away not one, but 2 copies of the brand new 2024 Player's Handbook. So definitely we'll have to do it there, because this is not the easiest place to do it through the sound of my voice. So we will definitely be doing that on our social accounts. So if you watch there, you may get yourself a chance to win a brand new Player's Handbook.
Shout out to our friends at Wizards of the Coast for providing those books for us to do this giveaway. We're really excited with our relationship. We're excited about our ongoing relationship with them, and also the benefits that it gives to all of you listeners out there, because 2 of you are going to go home with one of these books.
But as Derek said, if there's any ideas you have, or any reason you want to get a hold of us, the best place by far is dungeonmasterblock@gmail.com. And of course, if you do leave us a rating or review, we will always, never ask for, always appreciate it.
Yep. To hear more about our rebrand or about the new shows we are inviting to the Block Party Podcast Network, or to get information about the giveaway or to see the new website once we have that up and running, or any other reason, you can follow us at DMS_block on Twitter or Dungeon Masters Block on Instagram or any of the other social media platforms.
Absolutely. And as always, the Dungeon Masters Block is a proud member of the Block Party Podcast Network, where you can check out other shows like The Bad Venture Club, Knocked Prone, Dungeons and Dragons and Daughters, and more.
More to come.
Woo.
Thanks for listening to the Dungeon Masters Block, the place where we come to talk about the Dungeon Master, the most important person in the game, the only person capable of playing God,
killing characters,
and lowering the eagles of all the other people at the table. I am DM Derrick, telling you to go watch more TV and movies so you get more ideas to torture your players with.
Yep. I'm DM Neal. Good night, good luck, and keep on dungeon mastering.
It's not inspiration, it's not wisdom, and it's bad advice.
The next time you're planning a new campaign, just ask your players all of the movies and TV shows they just watched that week, and then just mishmash them all together and make your campaign that. Or alternately, at the end of every game session you run, make your players guess which movie or TV show you got all of the stuff in that session from.
Honestly, if you haven't kicked one of your players in the chest while shouting, "This is Sparta," are you really a dungeon master?